We'll call to order this evening's meeting of the agendized meeting of the City of Sonoma Climate Action Commission. That will be the call to order. Natalie, please do a roll call of the commission.
Commissioner Fogelberg?
Here.
Commissioner Heinerman?
Here.
Commissioner Nathan?
Here.
Commissioner Ward?
Here.
Vice Chair Conlon?
Here.
Chair Morrell?
Here.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is the approval of the agenda as published in the city website and available in front of each of the commissioners. I would solicit a motion for approval of the agenda from one of the commissioners.
So moved.
Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion of this motion that's before us to approve the agenda as printed? Hearing none, I would request a roll call vote.
Commissioner Fogelberg?
Approved.
Commissioner Heinerman?
Aye.
Commissioner Nathan?
Approved.
Commissioner Ward?
Approved.
Vice Chair Conlon?
Aye.
Chair Morrell?
Approved.
The motion passes 5-2.
No, I think it was unanimous. I heard approvals from all commissioners.
We have 2 people absent.
Oh, that's true.
Oh. Sorry. 6-1. I'm so sorry.
6-1. Something.
My math is not very good today.
No, we're negotiating your math and mine. Thank you. So the first item, as is often the case, involves comments from the public, with the chair reading the following statement. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It's recommended members of the public keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. Thank you. Under state law, unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the merits of the matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the Climate Action Commission at this time. For items appearing on tonight's agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time that item comes up for commission consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the chair, please step to the podium, speak into the microphone, begin by stating your name. Public comments received for items on the agenda prior to the meeting can be found in the Documents Center, Climate Action Commission online. Any comments received after 5 p.m. the day of the scheduled hearing will present it to the commission with the agenda item. Do we have any comments from the public not relevant to the agenda items? Thank you. Please step to the podium, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, not very many people came. I don't know if that's working or if I need it, but my name is Mandy Massarelli, and I just came to comment on, I was here at the last meeting, and I noticed that 66% of the emissions are from transportation, and I purchased an EV shortly after that last meeting, and then I went through the extremely long, difficult, and very expensive process of getting a permit. And I looked up what permits cost in other cities in California. Mine cost $775, which is far and above the most expensive permit I found of any city in California. It was also involving me to do an extensive drawing, extensive paperwork, and waiting 30 days, which I know you guys have been understaffed, but hopefully you're working on that. Also, Sonoma County has no incentive programs for low-income people. MCE, which covers Napa, Solano, Marin, and Contra Costa counties, all have a $3,000 incentive for people to buy an EV who are low income. Sonoma County doesn't have anything. I know that's not you guys, but it's just something to keep in mind that's preventing people from purchasing these vehicles in the city. There's also a severe lack of charging stations. There are 2 behind the Sebastiani Theater, but they are almost always in use by Teslas, and they have 4 blocks away a bank of 8 charging stations, which they're not using. And the only other comment I have is the EV waste event coming up on Saturday. I couldn't find anywhere on any website. I'm assuming I just have to pull over at one of those signs and write down when it is and where to go. So you might want to think about advertising that somewhere. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm puzzled about what permit was needed for the EV, but that wasn't clear to me.
The city permit to allow me to put in a charging station.
Oh, I see. It's the installation of the EV charger, not the vehicle itself.
Right,
Got
right.
it. All right.
Yeah, which is very expensive.
Right. Over the next couple, and thank you for those powerful comments, very important. And I think perhaps the Commission will, over time, be able to look at this issue of the cost to install a private charger with the inspection and so on. With respect to the availability of public chargers, I assure you that significant activity is underway behind the scenes, and within the next month or two, the public will hear a good deal more about some of the interactions that are underway to potentially bring some chargers into Sonoma under some very attractive rules. Any other commissioner comments on the public commentary this evening? Let's move on to the consent calendar for this evening. This is the minutes of meetings in November of 2023 and in February of 2024. Are there any comments or a motion to approve from Commission those two sets of minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Philip.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Is there any discussion of this? I would note I did see some typographical errors in the minutes as I read them that the team might look at before they're made final. I would open a motion. So it's moved and seconded, so we're ready to move to a roll call vote on that motion. Thank you, Natalie.
Commissioner Fogelberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Heinerman?
Aye.
Commissioner Nathan?
Abstain. Wasn't there.
Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
Vice Chair Conlon?
Yes.
Chair Morrell?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 6-1 or 5-1-1.
Thank you. Now we have the minutes of the special joint commission meetings late February of 2024. That's the joint meeting of the three commissions that minutes were in the packet. Once again, I would urge a motion to approve the joint minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second to said motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Cedra. Any discussion of these minutes and the importance of the three commissions meeting together, I would add? If not, I would call for a roll call vote on this motion, seconded.
Commissioner Fogelberg?
No, I wasn't in attendance. I wasn't in attendance at that meeting, so...
So if you're not in attendance at a meeting, however, you do review the minutes and the video as such, then you can still vote on those as for moving them forward.
Okay.
You abstain if you don't read them or didn't look at the meeting and follow with it.
Okay.
So Cedra specifically was at the actual February 29th meeting.
So then I'll abstain. I'll abstain then.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Heinerman?
Aye.
Commissioner Nathan?
Aye.
Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
Vice Chair Conlon?
Yes.
And Chair Morrell?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-1-1.
Excellent. Now we've moved to section 3, items for discussion this evening. Our first item, 3.1, is to receive a presentation from BayREN on programs and opportunities for collaboration. So we were open to the BayREN presentation.
This is, we're going to have a BayREN person. There's Anna. Anna and I think Christine as well. Yes, there she is. Are going to be presenting tonight from BayREN and will be available to answer questions afterwards. So I wanted to thank them for giving this presentation, and it's kind of an overview of all the great programs that they're doing, and then some looking at some specifics on how to, the city of Sonoma partner with BayREN to move certain items forward. Anna, are you speaking?
I can speak now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen and we can hear you just fine. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Well, good evening, and thank you for having us. My name is Anna Oliva, and I am the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, or BayREN, Program Specialist and Local Government Liaison with the Regional Climate Protection Authority. And today I'm happy to provide you with a briefing on our BayREN program portfolio and some of the services that are available throughout Sonoma County. And I do also want to introduce Christine Condon, who is a department analyst with the County of Sonoma's Climate Action and Resiliency Division. And Christine oversees our BayREN Codes and Standards program, as well as some of our other programs in our portfolio. Great, so I'll begin with a brief overview of what BayREN is as an organization and how it's implemented in Sonoma County, followed by an introduction to our 2024 program offerings, and I'll conclude with some of the services that are available for local governments and our upcoming outreach and education activities. So BayREN is the Bay Area Regional Energy Network and is a coalition of the 9 Bay Area counties, which make up a network of local governments partnering to promote resource efficiency at the regional level and focusing on energy, water, and greenhouse gas reduction. BayREN is also led by the Association of Bay Area Governments, or ABAG, and offers energy efficiency programs for residents, small businesses, and local governments. These include outreach and education, training, offering technical assistance, as well as funding. BayREN is funded by utility ratepayer funds through the California Public Utilities Commission, as well as some other sources. And its staff and representatives are composed of local government employees. The BayREN programs, which include rebates, financing, and technical assistance, are uniform throughout the Bay Area and are available at no cost to city and county staff. And what BayREN looks like in Sonoma County specifically, the Regional Climate Protection Authority is the county lead for BayREN's programs and management. And the County of Sonoma's Climate Action and Resiliency Division, or CARD, is contracted by our CPA to manage BayREN program implementation and outreach, as well as provide technical expertise for the programs. And additionally, at the beginning of this year, my role as the local government liaison was introduced to enhance local government access to our existing BayREN programs and resources and make sure that staff can fully take advantage of all of our programs and services and offerings. And one of the main goals of this position is to bridge the gap between city staff by streamlining communication and providing tailored support, as well as facilitating the most effective use of the resources. Some of our key areas of support that I can offer include communication services, and this includes providing ready-to-share material for local government communication channels. This includes sharing up-to-date information on the website, because BayREN information, like many rebate programs, is ever-changing. Social media posts, as well as content for newsletters. And we hope to work with staff to disseminate information for upcoming workshops, case studies in the county, training opportunities, and make sure that businesses, residents, and city staff are aware of any programmatic changes that are occurring, which is important right now because we have a lot going on within BayREN. And we also want to leverage community and staff knowledge to best direct our outreach for these programs and utilize some of the existing relationships that they have with the community. Additional services include climate policy support. So I have fully read your climate action strategies and hope to work with staff to identify some of the opportunities to align with BayREN services and metrics to support climate and energy goals. And I'll have some slides to share some specific examples of this later in the presentation. I also want to note that later in 2024, BayREN will be releasing its data aggregation and reporting tool, which will be a dashboard to provide BayREN metrics both at a county and jurisdiction level. And one other exciting BayREN activity is we have an existing building study that's going to be coming out later in 2024. This will take the form of a dashboard, and it encompasses full inventory of Bay Area building stock and includes information on energy usage profiles, building characteristics, and infrastructure. And this data can be broken down to both the county and jurisdiction level. So we'll be able to provide you with a full building stock inventory, as well as some jurisdiction level data to help prioritize key action areas where the greatest emissions can be reduced. And lastly, I have to work with staff on equity policy support. And so this is understanding some of the city's specific equity goals and how BayREN program activities can be guided to support those accordingly. Now I'll touch on some of our 2024 program offerings. BayREN's existing program portfolio consisted of 6 programs that serve residential, commercial, and cross-cutting or multiple audiences. To start off with our residential sector, I do want to note that our Single Family Home Plus program is currently undergoing redesign, and I'll cover this in a little more detail in the coming slides. Just at a really high level, our other residential programs include our Bay Area Multifamily Building Enhancement Program, or BAMBI. This program helps owners of multifamily properties make energy-saving building upgrades. And this program is available to apartment buildings, condos, and HOAs, and offers no-cost technical assistance and rebates for building upgrades, which can include electric heat pump, water heaters, HVAC systems, windows, insulation, and lighting, just to name a few. Also in residential, we have our Green Labeling program, which oversees the Home Energy Score offering. It provides residents with insights into their home's efficiency potential prior to taking on home upgrade projects. And can provide guidance on the best steps to take when starting that project. This program also offers training and resources for real estate professionals to become green home experts. Next, we have our commercial sector, which includes our BayREN business program, which offers a really valuable opportunity for small businesses to enhance their energy efficiency, as well as reduce overall operational costs. The target audience for this is categorized as hard to reach small businesses, which include being in a disadvantaged community, primary language other than English, or having less than 25 employees, just to name a few of our criteria for determining eligibility. However, in Sonoma County, there's a small audience that meets all of the eligibility for this program. So we work with the County of Sonoma's Climate Action and Resiliency Division and our local government partnership to offer the energy efficiency assessments, including technical support and financing incentives to businesses in general that do not meet our eligibility. Next, for our existing program, we have Water Upgrade Save. And this program helps homeowners and renters install water and energy efficiency upgrades. And the program is only available in participating jurisdictions, meaning that their utility is enrolled in the program. And currently in Sonoma County, Sebastopol and Cloverdale are enrolled in participating. Water Upgrade Save is an inclusive utility investment program that enables customers to install water efficiency upgrades while using a portion of their utility bill savings to pay for the project cost over time. One of the key benefits for this program is it removes barriers to participation, such as upfront cost, and provides affordable turnkey installation for customers. And another huge benefit that we've heard from our 2 enrolled utilities in Sonoma County is that it can easily integrate with some of the existing resources that are available and offered by the city. And two of our new programs that we have, one falling under commercial, is our BayREN refrigerant replacement program. And this aims to replace environmentally harmful refrigerants in the food service sector. And this includes offering full replacement, leak repair, as well as energy efficient upgrades. In 2024 is going to be a pilot year for this program, and we're expecting full rollout to be in 2025. And the last program I want to touch on is our Climate Careers program. This is a youth-focused green workforce development program, which is managed in partnership with Rising Sun. One of the program offerings for this will include services like energy efficiency kits. And I will hand it off to Chris to talk a little more about our Codes and Standards program and our two new public programs.
Good evening. Thanks for having us this evening. I'm an energy and sustainability analyst with the County of Sonoma and also the Codes and Standards lead for BayREN for the county. And under that purview, BayREN manages these new public programs. Formerly, the public program was the Municipal Zero Net Energy, Zero Net Carbon Technical Assistance Program, which the City of Sonoma took advantage of in 2021 and received a zero net carbon portfolio review of city buildings. We talked about this at previously, Jennifer, and we can send you the copy if you don't have it. But these programs have evolved, and now these new public programs are very exciting. Actually, they're more robust. They include the integrated energy services offering, and just something to be aware of is because Sonoma County has a PG&E local government partnership program that we manage in our office that provides energy efficiency roadmaps and energy assessment services and connection to resources for public buildings, and also, as Anna mentioned, for businesses, small and medium businesses in Sonoma County. Our program is kind of integrating with these new BayREN offerings to avoid duplication and redundancy. So it's a real collaborative operation. The Integrated Energy Services program will include an energy concierge, which will be a service to assist local governments with identifying the best technical assistance, financing, and incentive options for public facility projects, and to provide assistance with applications and assessing programs. The IES, or Integrated Energy Services Program, will also have an energy road mapping service component, and that's where we'll collaborate with BayREN. And we just wanted to have all the services for Sonoma County, so we really advocated for offering these services here in addition to what we offer through the local government partnership program. So that's going to involve technical and engineering assistance to develop roadmaps for improving public facilities to meet energy goals, and energy assessments for designated and potential community resilience centers, and technical assistance for energy improvements. The second component of these new public programs is the targeted decarbonization services, and this program will provide technical and financial support for selected public facility projects. So this will be a pilot program where the team will select pilot projects, and that will represent a range of different types of buildings, and there will be a priority for buildings serving equity kind of priority communities. The project's going to be a pilot, and it has to demonstrate approaches to building decarbonization. The intention is to collect and share real world data. And another component that I'm real excited about, and I think is really something that we've been missing, is that they're going to provide, BayREN is going to provide decarbonization education and financing support. So the intention is to familiarize local government staff with decarbonization equipment and financing strategies, and to explore financing alternatives, including leveraging alternative financing sources, and the intention is to test incentives. I got some great current updates today from the program manager, the intention, the preliminary intention timeline is to have the energy concierge service available late summer, early fall, and then the other components should follow by the end of the year. Again, these are new programs, so standing them up is a little bit of a challenge, but there are some fantastic new program managers on board, and this should be pretty great. I put a new website URL in the chat, so you would be aware of that, but it's the BayREN website has a public program site that's been updated to provide information about these resources. And so this is a place where cities and counties can go and sign up to get more information as the services roll out. So I'd highly recommend that. She wanted me to also mention that the next quarterly forum that BayREN Codes and Standards team is presenting will be on June 5th, and the focus will be on electrifying commercial buildings, including decarbonizing commercial kitchens. So that should be a great one. And then another update was we've had a kind of hiatus on training opportunities, and the expectation is that a little later in the year, after May or early June, we'll start rolling out more building department staff trainings. And then after that, training for facilities staff about decarbonization equipment. So I think that's going to be really fantastic. The other resource on this slide is the Codes and Standards program, which I'm heavily involved in. We offer assistance in developing and adopting local energy policies and building codes. That might be of interest to you folks. Provide training and resources for building staff to effectively implement and enforce the California Energy Code and local REACH codes. And then also providing no-cost technical assistance to help municipal buildings. We also organize quarterly forums, like I just mentioned, so keep your eyes out for that. We send out email blasts, so we'll be sure to include you. And then another opportunity that I wanted to mention to this group was there's an open REACH code call that's really informative. I think it's every other month now, but it's a way to network with other jurisdictions who've developed or are in development of REACH codes, or talking about the developments in the legal arena related to REACH codes. Great networking opportunity, and to get your questions answered by folks who've already implemented REACH codes, and great resources there. I think that's it for this slide. Anna?
Great. Thank you, Christine. Now I'll circle back to our Single Family Home Plus program relaunch. So the program redesign aims to address some of the gaps in the energy program landscape, and seeks to better serve our underserved audiences. And the new target audience for this program will include moderate income households, and another eligibility criteria includes those with limited English proficiency, as well as being located in a pollution-burdened zone. I also want to note that the program rebates are shifting towards energy efficiency, specifically weatherization and remediation, to complement some of the existing electrification programs that are out there, such as TEC, IRA, and Golden State, just to name a few. And our proposed program will offer whole home upgrades tailored for households who would otherwise be unable to afford them independently. And the new program design will consist of two core elements: a comprehensive concierge service and a direct install program. The concierge service will act as a one-stop shop for residents beginning their home upgrade process, and services will include conducting home assessments, connecting customers with appropriate resources, and helping fill out paperwork, as well as referring people to other programs if they're not eligible for our BayREN services. The direct install program will manage the entire installation process at little to no cost. And the program would work with customers on a scope of work, as well as helping manage the contractors through the completion of the project. And for households that have already been prepared for electrification, referrals will be provided to other resources, helping to streamline some of that access. I do want to note there's been a wide range of outreach that's been conducted during our redesign process, specifically focusing on representatives from our target communities. And so this would include contractors who would be possible program implementers, homeowners, and our target audience, and community-based organizations such as LOCIAN and Goodwill. I do want to note that there's still a lot we don't know yet about the final program design, such as exactly how many households will be able to serve annually, how the program will serve renters and effectively engage landlords, how long a typical project will take, as well as selecting our program implementers. But the feedback gathered during these past few weeks has been really crucial for shaping that final program proposal. I do want to just visually show where we're at in our process. We are wrapping up our community engagement and are in the process of releasing our RFP for program implementers. The program proposal is expected to be released later in the spring, with the anticipated program launch being later in 2024. I do want to note that in the interim, BayREN is sunsetting its current rebate offerings in a phased approach. And so what this might look like would be a first phase began on April 15th. And this included sunsetting rebates for heat pump water heaters and heat pump HVAC systems. And we want to make sure that we're directing people who are still interested in making these home upgrades to some of the other resources that are available. As I mentioned, typically that's TAC and Golden State. And our second wave of the rebate phase out will begin in the fall of 2024. The exact date of this is still to be determined. And again, I would recommend referring to the website for any up-to-date information as our phase out dates come a little closer. And now I'll pass it over to Christine to talk about some of our opportunities to collaborate and some of the resources that are available specifically for local government staff.
So again, I'm with the Climate Action and Resiliency Division at Sonoma County, part of the County Administrator's Office, formerly with General Services in the Energy and Sustainability Division. I've been with the county since 2017. In our division, we have several local government partnerships that allow us to offer this unified service delivery model of services. So we look at our customers or clients as buildings, and we just want all buildings to become extremely efficient, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, resilient. So that's what we care about. So we don't care where the money comes from. We just try and gather up as much as we can and as much resources to get the projects done. So through our local government partnership with PG&E and with our partnership with BayREN, we can offer site visits for commercial buildings and also public agencies. We create these roadmaps that provide recommendations for a project plan for short, mid, and long-term opportunities. And really powerful is being aware of and connecting projects with resources. One program that's really very powerful right now is there's a low to no cost heat pump water heater program for public entities, and it's through the government K through 12 program that's administered by PG&E, and through our office. My contact information will be at the end. We can connect any public entity with this resource, and we've had many people in the county take advantage of this, many entities, and it is really free. It depends on the project. If there's situation like procurement technicalities or maybe there's upgrades that exceed the max that can add costs, but it's really quite a powerful program. So please reach out. And we're aware of these programs as they come online too. So it's a really real good resource, central resource for this type of information. We manage the Sonoma Green Business Program, which is our staff provides no-cost sustainability technical support to help folks get certified through the statewide Green Business Network. We host sustainability workshops, both in person at the local libraries in both English and Spanish. And then we have a robust offering of webinars, and we record those and have a really solid library on YouTube. So that's worth checking out. And it's on all sorts of decarbonization, resiliency topics. We maintain a qualified contractor list for the Sonoma County Energy Independence Financing Program. It's another offering from our office, and that contractor list is not really a recommendation, but it's robust because it's basically all the qualified contractors who serve Sonoma County, and people can search by specialty. It's really a great resource. We offer contractor workforce development specialized trainings, like we are hosting a realtor training on green real estate properties and how to kind of evaluate them. Again, financing rebates, and we offer no-cost consulting to individuals and businesses, both for energy efficiency upgrades, electrification, and solar and battery storage. And those are of a great value. Next slide, please. So one of the most probably powerful things that we do is to support the work at the division. We've developed a multi-channel outreach plan. An integral component to the plan is education through homeowner-focused in-person workshops, quarterly webinar series, and workforce development trainings for contractors on structural resiliency and the role of energy efficiency and decarbonization. We've listed a sampling of a wide variety of topics that we cover in our outreach. And then specific to Sonoma, we're developing an outreach campaign for the Springs area. And we're going to actually do an in-person outreach campaign there to help folks who haven't historically taken advantage of these resources become informed. We're just trying a different strategy, and we will have bilingual staff in addition to monolingual staff hitting the streets, likely in the summer. We're developing the outreach campaign in coordination with Soluna in Santa Rosa. Ugo, I'm sorry, his last name is slipping my mind, but he's a fantastic resource for helping us to outreach to the Spanish-speaking community. I think that's it for this slide.
Great. Now I just wanted to take a quick look at some of the actions pulled from the climate action strategies to see where we can leverage some of the resources that Christine just mentioned, as well as BayREN specific resources. And the first, very appropriately, would be collaborating on increased coordination for marketing and promoting some of our resources that we have, both for residential and commercial customers. Christina also mentioned the support that the Codes and Standards program offers for adopting REACH codes. And I would really recommend taking advantage of the Open REACH Codes call. That's a really great resource. Next, offering energy efficiency workshops. So currently, the team does coordinate with the regional libraries to put on these workshops twice a year, and they are offered in both English and Spanish. But if they're sometimes it just doesn't fit in the schedule with the regional library, but we're happy to partner directly with the city to offer those workshops for residents. Some other resources I want to share on this specific action. Christine mentioned our webinar series that does run biannually. We did just have one going winter to spring, but we'll be returning late summer and fall. And then our induction cook talk demos, which we had earlier in January at the Advanced Energy Center. And just one other action item I wanted to touch on was deploying local energy conservation teams. One resource I wanted to note was our Bay Area multifamily building enhancement program, as well as water upgrade saved specifically for water efficiency upgrades. And thank you so much for your time, and we welcome any questions you may have.
Well, let me start by thanking you for a comprehensive and very welcome presentation, certainly interfaces with a number of our climate action strategies that we're moving from this commission through the City Council for effective implementation. I would turn to my fellow commissioners for any further specific questions, and I have a couple of my own.
Let me ask a question. One of our earlier speakers mentioned chargers. What are you doing with regard to vehicle charging?
Currently, that's not, or unless you want to take this, currently it's not in BayREN scope to cover EV infrastructure. Chris, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
I think the caller or the person that was doing public comment mentioned MCE, which is a community choice aggregator utility in Marin, right? Sonoma Clean Power is the equivalent in Sonoma County, and they do offer incentive programs. I haven't really looked recently, but they did have an incentive for part of the cost for charging stations. So Sonoma Clean Power customers do have a resource.
Tom?
Thank you. I'm going to follow up on that last point, and I'll defer to another question to you next. But I think the public comment we got earlier was specific to the City of Sonoma's permit fee and not to the subsidies that come from the Community Choice Aggregation District. Totally separate problem. My understanding is that for quite some time, Sonoma Clean Power has given away the actual hardware, but the concern I think that was raised is that the city is requiring additional permit inspection fees. So that's something, unless I'm misinformed, that's my understanding.
Yeah, I just actually bought an EV myself, and that is no longer available.
I have a question.
Sarah, yes, please.
Thank you for your presentation. That was excellent. You mentioned some of the people who are using your programs, and I was just curious about if you had any information if this San Diego Unified School District has participated in any of your decarbonization programs. You mentioned some of the school offerings and some of the outreach you had, and I was just if you had any particulars about that. I mean, Sonoma.
San Diego.
Sorry, I'm from.
Welcome to Sonoma.
Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, Sonoma Unified School District. Thank you.
We have had some engagement with the local maintenance folks at the Office of Education up in Santa Rosa. I am not aware of any of the schools in Sonoma County taking advantage of like the heat pump water heater program or the energy efficiency roadmap tool, but we've been outreaching, and I think with the BayREN program coming online, we should have a little more robust offering. The heat pump water heater program is good for any government entity and K through 12 schools. So if there is, any way that you would like to kind of help us outreach to your local school district, we would be happy to make a presentation about any of those resources available. So that's my understanding now. Like, we've worked with the City of Sonoma through the local government partnership program and through BayREN, but I'm not aware of any of the county schools taking advantage of it.
We'll follow up with Sonoma Unified, where we have contact going on. I would also urge you to possibly be in touch with the Bellevue Unified School District in Santa Rosa, where there's currently a major effort underway on greening schoolyards in 4 schools with a planning grant from CAL FIRE that's looking at a great deal of work on greening and trees and outdoor classrooms, and this would be a perfect fit to have BayREN involved in some of their energy conservation efforts to link into it. They do have some solar and so on, but Bellevue Unified would be an appropriate target for you, I'm sure.
I have
Sandra,
sorry,
sure.
one more question.
No, please. What it's for.
Looking at the you mentioned the springs, looking at the demographics, Sonoma has a lot of owner-occupied housing, but in the springs it's more renter-occupied. And so I was wondering how you are going to reach out with renters versus owner housing, and what the strategy is there, so we could help facilitate if that's useful.
So the outreach effort that I described earlier is focused on businesses in the Springs area. As far as our outreach to different parts of the community, again, it's generally through these workshops, and again, we offer them in English and in Spanish. And then the program, and it's the Rising Sun program. That is a really great tool for renters because they can just fill out some information and receive a no-cost energy efficiency upgrade kit with LED light bulbs and a smart power strip. Another resource is in partnership with the water agency, the libraries, and the county, and Sonoma Clean Power. We offer these do-it-yourself toolkits in the libraries that are really wonderful for renters, and they allow folks to kind of look at their plug loads, and they also contain free light bulbs and weather stripping and things like that. And so, and again, we'll offer consulting to anyone in Sonoma County. So if someone's interested in upgrading their apartment and they're looking for resources, they can just reach out to us for a free consultation.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? I have a couple of points based on our early work of this commission that seem germane to this and would love to have you think about these issues. We looked early on at the possibility of focusing on the mobile home park in the city of Sonoma for solar arrays as a way to have our climate efforts citywide be a little more aggressively focused on those with less income. And turned out, the report came back that the weight of the solar arrays were too heavy for the use in our mobile home parks. If there were any way that BayREN could look into that and find some alternative structural model, possibly that would be a terrific move forward on the solar side. Second idea that came out of our early work and some of our continuing thinking, we're aware that Sonoma Clean Power has an evergreen service versus their basic service. I'd be intrigued with any data that you and BayREN and CARD may have from Sonoma Clean Power on the degree of greenhouse gas reduction by customers switching from basic Sonoma Clean Power aggregation into the evergreen system. So those would be 2 action items I would love for BayREN and CARD to follow up on.
So I would recommend highly reaching out to Sonoma Clean Power. They are fabulous. They're a fabulous resource, and they know their power mix and they know their rate structure. So Sonoma Clean Power is the resource for that information. And we'll definitely keep your mobile home. We're all thinking about mobile homes because they're a tough nut to crack.
Excellent, thank you, and we will reach out again to Sonoma Clean Power with that. Commissioner Fogelberg has a question or a comment.
Yes, actually, both for Jennifer and our speakers, presenters. So there were quite a few areas in here that piqued my interest. And what is the process for going into more depth on some of these topics? Can we go directly to BayREN and open up the conversation, or does it need to go through you, Jennifer? What's a next step in procedure and policy on this?
So the question in regards to next steps and procedure, it's going to depend on what specifically. So the intent of the presentation today was to provide an overview, not to get into too specific details. As you noted in the presentation, some of the programs are changing and evolving right now. Other ones are holding strong. Christine and I are going to meet and talk about what we've done so far and kind of what we need to look at again based on our current climate strategies as it pertains to our public buildings and those projects. You've already identified a lot of things. And so tonight, the next item is really talking about kind of what do we want to ask for the budget as it relates to all these strategies. And then the other is the ad hocs. So creating ad hoc committees. Some of these may be, hey, we want to, as a group, find this out and learn about it. So that means that we'll need to do another presentation to the group about these specific topics. If it's an ad hoc, let's say it's the group that's really going to focus on the education and outreach, and they're just wanting to get access to the materials for us to share, right, on our website. And it's more about linking to theirs because they're going to update with more regularity than we ever would. And so we would link to all their great resources that they have. And so that would be maybe a committee effort that, maybe somebody on the committee then reaches out for that, goes through their website and says, where was that again? That kind of aspect. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay.
Excellent. And following up on that, I think, for example, some of what I heard this evening that's quite exciting needs to be introduced to our commercial community here in Sonoma, the business community, for ways for them to become more aware of these opportunities from BayREN and CARD and other opportunities for support in their electrification and decarbonization efforts. And I would anticipate that we're able to do so as we interact with the local business community.
Yes, I am in more communication now with the chamber. Travis did a lot with the chamber and presented as new laws were coming down, things like that, making sure that they were aware. And so now, we don't have a person yet, but it's on my list to help us, make sure that I'm not missing, from the staff side of it, missing some things and making sure that the word gets out and is shared. And we can also put the chamber in contact with BayREN, especially when the rollout of the refrigerant program and some of the other ones are. And then, so our chamber also is for both the valley. It's for the whole valley, right? It's not just the city. So when we roll out the program later this summer and doing more of that on-site work, the chamber can also assist with that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other commissioner comments? I would thank the BayREN and CARD representatives so much for an excellent presentation this evening. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day.
So Commissioner Conlon does, and we do want public comment before we conclude.
Thank you.
Yes,
And great to hear from both you, Anna and Christine. Lot of work going on there. I'm kind of impressed at the scope of everything that's in front of us. I'm curious, I have some big picture questions, as you might expect. But rather than belabor tonight, is there an evaluation that's been done of the statewide BayREN or the RENs? I have questions about, like, how much funding is total going into these programs? Where is it being targeted? Where are the strategies being most successful? Because what you gave us tonight was a very high-level overview, and obviously, the format, this structure of program is going to be more effective. It's doing certain kinds of things. I'm especially curious of the breakdown in Sonoma County between how much money is going directly to hard installs and rebates and things like that versus training and outreach and other things that are help but don't necessarily immediately result in reduced carbon emissions. So can you point us to any resources that would help with those kinds of questions? Do you know of those?
I can take this one, Chris. I can follow up with some additional resources for how we're communicating with some of the other RENs. I do want to note that it's somewhat limited because BayREN is serving the specific needs that have been expressed throughout the Bay Area counties. We do have more information available, probably not on a specific budgeting or cost breakdown for Sonoma County, but a larger picture funding breakdown in our BayREN business plan, which breaks down our 2024 to 2027 budget for the programs, including the launch of the 4 new programs.
Great. That would be a good start for my questions because, just get a sense for how much is this is really targeted to business versus residential. And then specifically on the business program, I thought I heard, I think it was Christine presenting, maybe it was you, Anna, presenting on that there was not, many of the businesses in Sonoma County were not qualifying because they were not eligible, or they were too large perhaps, or not disadvantaged enough by the BayREN standards. Is that, did I hear you correctly, or did I get that wrong? Yeah, I think this was...
You heard Anna correctly about the BayREN program, but that's why it's so great that we have the local government partnership program, because we can actually fill the gap where, and those businesses can still take advantage of the technical assistance resources. They just won't be eligible for this direct install program that's targeted towards less served demographics. So it's a pretty robust offering between our two organizations. And so if you have specific questions about business offerings, that would be, we can do a deeper dive anytime, Tom.
Cool. Okay. It sounded to me like maybe there were those kinds of businesses in our community. We just weren't finding them for whatever reason. So I wanted to be thinking about that. Maybe not in the city of Sonoma because rent is so expensive for commercial businesses here, but there's a lot of opportunity even so. Excuse me. It sounded like the single family plus relaunch is targeting to moderate income, but that's owners, right? That's not going to be renters in that program. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, at least for the first year of program rollout. And then after that, we're going to look to how we can best serve renters moving forward.
And then I thought I also heard in there that there was something about a pollution targeted areas. Is that there already, or is that in the redesign?
Yeah, pollution burden zone. And so that's determined through the CalEnviro screen map, for example.
Which, to my knowledge, does not, there's no CalEnviro screen qualifying communities in Sonoma County.
I believe so, or it's very limited.
It's limited. It's in the Boys Hot Springs area. There's some, and then also up in Roseland in Sonoma County. So very small pockets.
Right, because this has come up in a couple of committees I'm on where we're looking at the updates to the safety element and the environmental justice element of the general plan. And my understanding was that CalEnviro screen leaves those communities out, but the new Cal EPA tool includes those two you mentioned, Christine. And I'd encourage using that other one, the EPA's tool, CSEST or whatever it is, because it does target our Springs community, which is really one of the most in-need communities. And I also point out that the current general plan proposal is to dilute that and to instead look at a housing affordability, which is so broad as to incorporate a massive amount of the county. So it kind of dilutes those more truly in need communities. Pardon the editorial comment there.
First time ever from this particular spokesman.
True. I'll keep it in check. We talked about EV chargers. My understanding is that the BayREN programs do require contractors to be approved off that list? Is that, and also require building permits to be pulled from the jurisdiction of authority?
That's been the case for the Single Family Home Plus program, but for example, the multifamily program, Bambi, does not require you to use a BayREN contractor. The building owner can select their contractor, but we'll still connect you with some of the rebates and the resources that are available.
Good, and because the reason I ask is I've heard recently that one of our longer standing residential contractors has just gone out of business. And that even with all these subsidies, it's still hard to make a living in this particular space. And so I'm just, again, curious how well these programs are performing and if they're really getting, if we're getting contractors and satisfied customers out of the exchanges, out of the transactions.
Just wanted to point out, always permits are required to final the incentive application.
Okay, thank you. That's something I insisted on a couple of years ago. Not sure it was the best idea in the long run. In my recent experience with permitting authorities. Anyway, again, I did it again. I said I wasn't going to do that. And then on outreach, yeah. When you do reach out in the Springs, I would encourage talking to the Springs Municipal Advisory Council. I attended their meeting last week, and they had a lot of participation from members of the public. They are, while the meeting was conducted in English, there is a lot of Spanish language outreach through that group, and that strikes me as being one of the better community adjacent groups in the valley, in Sonoma Valley, in the Springs in particular. And thank you for outlining the difficulty with, our comprehensive approach, solar versus building efficiency and decarbonization. It sounds though like your business programs do, in the road mapping process, make it possible to include at least solar and battery storage solutions as part of that road mapping process, which is something we talked about in our buildings ad hoc as a potential problem with these traditional BayREN utility funded offerings. So again, thank you for a great presentation. There's a lot for us to chew on here and to follow up with you over the time, and glad that you and Jennifer are in connection. So thanks again.
And thank you again. And a final thought, and much of what we heard this evening will relate to our ongoing efforts at what we call climate smart tourist destination, and the need to move ahead with these kinds of improvements in our physical structures, as well as, of course, in the related transit and transportation and VMT issues, as we work with the business community and the residential community here locally and more broadly. Thanks again.
Public comment.
Public comment on the, please come to the podium and introduce yourself, and thanks for being here.
Hi, it's Mandy Massarelli again. I do have one comment that I didn't hear mentioned, and that is about getting in order to become electrifying the homes and the businesses, we often need to do a main surface panel upgrade, and our HOA actually recently did that for the condo complex that I live in, and it took 6 months to coordinate that permit between PG&E and the city to get that main surface panel upgrade done. And incidentally, that was only $200 for that permit, as opposed to for my car charger, which was $775. So I think if PG&E and the city could work out something where they can push through those permits and make it easier to get that done, that would help in electrifying what you guys are trying to do here.
Thank you for that comment. Excellent. Any other public comment this evening on this topic? Seeing none, I believe we can move on, and thank you once again to the BayREN team for an excellent presentation this evening.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Glasses back on to read where we are with the next steps here. Item 3.2 of tonight's agenda is our discussion of climate action strategies, and always a fun topic, the FY 24-25 budget requests. Jennifer, perhaps we'll start with your comments on this, unless any other commissioners have a particular point to make before we turn to Ms. Gates. Seeing none, Ms. Gates.
All right, I'll start. So before you tonight, I have updated the climate action strategies that you saw at our last meeting, which was February. At that meeting, we started the conversation about whether or not this would be a staff item or if we would have an ad hoc committee kind of focus on it. Maybe there was funding that was needed. So if I added another column on the far right-hand side, which identified what, if it was staff or if it what specific ad hoc that was being recommended to look at it. So previously, when we had discussed it in February, we just said, oh, that should be an ad hoc committee. We didn't say it should be this ad hoc committee or that one. But we did talk about, well, this is more of the education or outreach. So I took the liberty of identifying what the different ad hocs could potentially be, and that would work on certain items of that. Again, I am your conduit on ad hoc committees communication. You guys don't talk to each other, you just talk to me, and then I share. And then together we can talk in this forum here. And I'll go through a little bit more about ad hocs in the next item. But for right now, the main focus of this is I just want to make sure that everybody was aware that I did update it. I also added in under 2024 kind of what I saw based on the conversations and also what we had identified in the strategies of what was accomplishable in 2024. What did we really need to focus on to do within our committees and our staff? So with that, I don't know if you all had a chance to look at it. It's not set in stone or anything. It's just for conversation. We don't have to converse about this today. Today I want to focus on the funding. We can talk more about this aspect at the meeting because we have another meeting in like 3 weeks. So we can bring this back up and we can focus more on this and the ad hocs. I just want to bring it to your attention that the funding request that I'm going to present next is based on my outline that I put into this document. All right. So based on that document, going through, seeing what we'd identified for 2024, there are specific programs that I was looking at that could be identified under our climate action strategies. As you know, climate action sustainability is a city council goal. So therefore, we're eligible for funds this year. Yoo-hoo! So we need to prioritize what those requests are because, you know, we can shoot high, you know, but it doesn't mean we're going to get it all, right? And so I'm going through the list. I was estimating and kind of working through based on your initial proposals that you had completed last year. I looked at those and then kind of re-evaluated what it was more feasible in this year to do. And so I also looked at some other cities and what they're offering around energy conservation and water conservation, and kind of adapting what are we looking at and how would that work in theirs. So I looked at their budgets as well to help us with ours. So that's where some of these numbers are coming from. So in looking at the energy conservation programs, as we just heard in the presentation from BayREN, they do offer this. You know, they offer the workshops, they offer the power strips. So this is where partnerships, maybe it's other costs associated with promoting it. Maybe we need to rent a space locally. So this is where the $15,000 is coming in. Maybe we need to contribute some funds to pay for more of those kits, you know, so that we get a bunch that we can put here like we did with the compost pails, right? Same idea. So that's where so that number could flex based on what the council decides at the end of the day, but at least it puts us on the mark, on the board for that program. Solid waste, composting, as well as the water conservation. When I was looking at other cities, and instead of giving the product or the money, most cities offer a rebate program. So show me that you did this, and give me your receipt, and I will then, refund you a portion of those. And we can develop what that looks like specifically. There was a couple of cities that I had already looked at. They had the rain barrel program, cash for turf, they had a smart irrigation, they had gray water, they had this one city just had this huge long list of water conservation rebate programs. Nobody I saw had composting, but maybe one of you all know a composting place. But so this is where I was going with, solid waste, maybe 5, and then there's other options. So the water conservation could be some additional programs associated with that. So between those two, that's an additional $30,000 in that request. In the tree priorities that we'll talk about in the next item specifically, but the main items that we had identified at the meeting was a tree inventory, the canopy assessment to really kick it off, and to do the urban forestry management plan. We are applying for a CAL FIRE grant. That is the goal if City Council approves it. The pros will be making a recommendation, since they are a tree committee. Technically, under the code, they are the tree committee. They'll make a recommendation that City Council actually applies. And so we need to get that approval, and I'll go to City Council in May. If we don't receive it, we're still going to ask for the funds for the tree inventory and the canopy assessment. The urban forestry management plan may just back off by another year if we can't get the funding for it. I am getting estimates from a couple of different companies right now, just to make sure that we're right in the right ballpark for the $100,000 estimate, and also for our CAL FIRE grant purposes to make sure that that estimate is supported.
I'm confused. The $100,000 was for the tree inventory and canopy assessment. The urban forest management plan would only happen if we got CAL FIRE grant?
No, it's going to be the $100,000 request is for all three. If I don't get $100,000, the priorities are going to be the top two. And I'm getting the actual estimates for each one of those as an individuals from these different companies. But the over the phone estimate has been around $100,000.
I'm sure from my experience writing proposals, some of which successful, some less so, that if we can budget this $100,000 before May 30th and be able to tell CAL FIRE that we've done so, they will be very impressed with that in terms of the turnaround on their analytics in terms of a proposal for further CAL FIRE funding as being an opportunity.
And then the last item is outreach materials. So I understand that we only have one public information officer. So that's why we wanted to do an ad hoc around outreach and education, because lots of people are needed to put something together. And while she'll update the website, actually the printing of any materials and things like that are going to cost money. Or if we want to have, a logo. Somebody asked me today, where's the Climate Action Commission's logo? And I was like, there is not one. So that was one of those things where I was like, well, that's something we can design or pay somebody. I mean, obviously 5,000 is not going to get us a lot. It's more for just production purposes. Somebody would donate. We would kind of do a match, request for assistance. So that gets us to 150,000. The item that's at the bottom doesn't mean I don't like it. It's the question of the day, right? So the building code will change. I had my dates wrong. The date is going to be it'll go into effect January 1st, 2026. Next year, 2025 is the new building code. So that's the one that's going to be developed and going to be approved, and then the city, and so that's around July 2025, and then the city would then adopt what changes that they would want to make and things like that. Remember, REACH codes, the idea is that you're reaching beyond what the state has adopted. The state every year around energy has bumped up the requirements every single time that they've done this, right? So we started with, oh, you just had to be solar ready in single family homes. Now you have to install solar. Now you have to install batteries with your solar. So everything keeps stepping. So that's why I have it as an option. It's up for discussion in the sense of, do we do a REACH knowing that the code's going to change? We're not quite sure what that looks like yet. We'll know in a year what that looks like, and then can start a process for a REACH code at that point versus now. And that's why I'm putting it out there as just a suggestion is the last jurisdiction I worked, we did a REACH code, and guess what? It became the code. And it was for EV charging stations. So.
Tom.
Right. So I follow that logic that if we are too eager and early in our REACH, our literal REACH, we end up with, it would be more cost efficient for the city to pounce on the templatized REACH code that was produced out of the code update process. And that will be implemented similar to the other jurisdictions around us. We don't have to pull all of this ourselves. So I actually think that's a really good idea for us not to get too far out in front on REACH code this year. But I do think it makes some sense to, maybe as part of the legislative or advocacy strategy of the city, to be monitoring the process and just making sure that what's happening with the CEC and the code adoption is in fact the kind of thing we want to see supported in the city to make our job easier rather than harder here locally.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. I would also, I'm going to follow up also with the REACH code call, and kind of see what they're talking about, because I have a feeling they're probably doing that in monitoring kind of the conversations happening at the state of where we're going. So there are certain ones that I don't know that the state would go towards, and that would be more around the no gas, right? So though that type is, that's something that if we were considering to look at that specifically, I wouldn't say we need to put money into the REACH code aspect yet. I think right now it's more about what is the community going to support around those. Well, how much of a REACH is the community going to go for right now? As we all know, that there's positives, and then there's been some reaction in case law around it. And so it's just kind of like, all right, what's going on in our community? And so maybe this is the time that we need to put out the feelers and start educating around gas and electricity and things like that. I am looking at my building ad hoc people too. But so that concludes my part of what I wanted to present to you on this item. So if you have any questions,
let's see what the commissioners want to suggest or ask at this point.
And then we have public as well.
And then the public comment. Any commissioner comments on the layout of this fiscal ask proposal? I would start by saying I think that 2/3 of the total going to the trees is consistent with what I heard the council wanting to do in its annual process. And again, getting that in place before May 30th would have some great advantages, I speculate, can't prove, with respect to CAL FIRE, noticing that we're pretty darn serious about what we're doing in this regard.
I will,
Tom,
if I may, I will counter actually against that, as you might have expected.
always fun.
Because this committee, at least, did not have the tree prioritized in this manner. This committee was really primarily focused on transportation, and right now there's no proposal for transportation spending. And I know that Jennifer has a good answer for why that's the case, but I'm curious to hear what it might be.
I'm going up to the transportation section.
And can I don't know, can I also mention something about the trees relative to transportation also, because I think they're related, to tell you the truth. The idea is trees for active transportation and trying to get people out of their car. So some of the elements of the tree inventory and the canopy assessment is that when we were looking at why this should be prioritized, is that there's a 25% increase in people who use trails when they're cool corridors or they have trees over them. And so the idea is that, like, for example, kids going to school or having safe access to these areas, is that if we can get people to use the green infrastructure, the corridors, and increase corridors in Sonoma, then we are actually making progress towards reducing the 66% transportation greenhouse gas emissions, and that's actually why trees were, it's not stated, but that actually is to enhance our transportation greenhouse gas reduction. Not through greenhouse gas update, but because of car reduction, the number of miles that are used in Sonoma are such a small amount of miles, we want people to get out of their cars.
So a lot of the transportation climate action strategies are around getting out of your cars. But a lot of them were big dollar projects, right? So the ones that are smaller, and they were different years. So I was also focused on 2024 that we had talked about. So 2024 and 2023, first is, as I go down, create high visibility concentrated bicycle parking. So the installation of bicycle parking should begin any week now. All in the plaza, we're going to put in a number of bicycle racks. We have some extra ones that we're looking to identify where we're going to place them, but we've purchased them all, so we don't need money for that. We've already purchased a number of them. The cool corridor, I am hoping that grants group can help me identify what that is. If we go after a grant, that's fine. If it's a match, then we can ask for funds at that time when we understand what those needs actually are for that. I know that Travis had worked on a cool corridor plan already, kind of identifying where we can plant a bunch of trees all around our trail, the one right here, and some other locations. So it's just a matter of going after the funds to actually plant the trees. However, the CAL FIRE grant, we're also looking at planting the trees to help with that as well. Chargers, we were looking at 2026. We're still looking at it. It's going to be kind of a separate item if they're in the public spaces, if there's specific grants for those, and then having the city go after those grants for installation through Public Works. Again, those were identified for later. Expanding the run times for number 32, that's really, at this time, I don't know what that cost would be. And so we need to start those conversations about what is required for ridership in order for them to increase that. We already do fund My understanding is we do fund SET already. We give them a little extra money. And so what would that look like if we wanted even more frequency? We need to start looking into the downtown shuttle. It is a priority in the sense that it was in our parking management plan as well. It is really going to be more about master planning it at this point. Again, identified in 2025. However, it's a conversation that I need to have with the city manager about if he wants to he wants to have it as part of the city manager's budget, or if it's going to be a climate action ask, because it's like the trees, it sits in different buckets right now at different departments. The banning the fossil fuel filling stations as well as the new drive-through windows doesn't cost anything.
So thank you for that, because I knew you were prepared to answer that question.
I was looking. I kept going. I literally went everything.
Well, and maybe just to head this off at the next encounter with the city council would be to identify some of these transportation related issues and have a budget number next to them so that we don't get stuck on that. The things I agree that the existing bike parking on the plaza and the near-term cool corridors, tree planting for that motivation for active transportation, great ideas, and no problem with moving forward on that. The other kind of significant thing I wanted to be sure we weren't missing the opportunity on is the active transportation plan update right now and identifying the sidewalk gaps and the bike lane opportunities, because while we do have some wonderful corridor real estate like the crosstown bike path, the rail to trail project that can readily take trees and be a much cooler path, it's the north-south routes that I think are the most problematic right now, and those I don't think are eligible for the cool corridors component, the planting of trees, unless I'm mistaken. Maybe 2nd Street East or others are good places to do that where the trees are already existent, but that's thinking that stuff through. I want to be sure we get that active transportation planning happening now, and if that means throwing a little bit of budget to close those to identify where those opportunities are, we should try to do that sooner rather than later. And the concept is called quick build because it's inexpensive to put in plastic bollards like we've seen now at the Agua Caliente Creek Bridge crossing, a massive improvement to the safety of that very dangerous segment of roadway. Not a lot of money went into putting that together.
So going back to the ATP plan, in May, there will be a presentation of the draft. Well, actually, the first one will be at the, there'll be a booth we'll have set up by SCTA that they will be presenting the concepts for the next round of the active transportation plan information, and that is going to be at one of the Tuesday night markets. I'll get you the exact date. It's going to be after our May meeting. I'm just trying to find it in my calendar. And then the next item will be that we'll be having an actual community workshop. All right, so we're doing the Tuesday night market booth on May 28th. And then there'll be a community meeting, I want to say that week or the week before, but I'll get you those dates in May. And there'll be a community workshop that we'll be having at the community center.
And because I did speak with Dana Ture, who's managing that project for the county right now, and she had said she was in touch with your office and had gotten a very good list of sidewalk identified sidewalk areas, because we've had the sidewalk program in the city of Sonoma for quite some time, and so there was a lot of intelligence about where the sidewalk problems are. But I'm not sure if that was actual sidewalk gaps so much as it was sidewalk cracks. So I want to be sure that that's what she thinks it is the first thing. And then secondly, she said there was sort of limited bicycle update information available to the consulting team that's working on it right now. So I guess what I'm thinking is, how do we get that recommendation data to them to make it part of the draft plan in May in time for it to be something that SCTA can then rank in its list of priority projects to go out and get funding for, because it's very fundable right now.
Right. So if you, Planning Commission actually had the presentation already by them that had the list of all the sidewalk gaps as well as the projects that they're being recommended. At that meeting, there were a couple of comments of, I think there's a bike lane there, or I don't think there's a bike lane there. So this is the time in which to clarify and make sure, to double check whether that's getting out some volunteer teams to go walk some streets in those areas would be the best use and the quickest way to do that. If there are certain interest groups around that, I personally don't have time to do that. But volunteers are great people, and if people want to go and walk and ride and go look at those specific areas and provide that feedback. I mean, a lot of that feedback was already provided, but now that they've actually drawn out a little bit more about what the projects are, they're ready for more feedback on what those projects.
So I have a question about that. So we have there's some couple groups I'm involved with that has a Green Links map that has gone around and walked every street in Sonoma and has identified where a north-south bicycle corridor would be useful to connect and create what's called like an emerald necklace, a Green Links pathway that could connect all of our existing green trails with what would be a gap analysis, basically, of where where the missing areas should be. And so I think you saw an early version of that, Jennifer, and I'm not sure where I should take this information now, because I was thinking it would go into the CAL FIRE Planning Urban Forest Management Plan, but now I'm hearing it sounds like it needs to go to a different group.
So that specific one, so there's two different things that you're talking about. One is existing conditions. Existing conditions would be more relevant to this active transportation plan. A lot of what is being put into that active transportation plan is not about necessarily the concept that you came up with, and the linking and the greening is great. That's kind of like more, I think, sometimes bigger picture items, and those are the things that I was thinking about, like in our general plan for us. This is about connecting routes through our city. So not just within, but through. And so I think some of what you're greening is kind of more of like, okay, what do we need to do as a city? Because it involves getting property, getting access and easements and things. Those are typically more about that road is this wide, we can put this type on this road. And make it, the focus that we were really focused on is connecting to our schools, making sure that we're filling gaps, but we're going to be setting our own policies in our general plan for moving forward with our own type of projects. These projects are for us, but it's also for the county. It's a county project. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think there's some overlap. So I should probably take some of that information that would be relevant. You're right. There's different hierarchies of information in that, and in terms of like road width and things like that, there's definitely people gone out and measured Fifth Avenue East, for example, in terms of what could be feasible there. So the detail that you're talking about in terms of what makes safe access to schools, links resident access to hospitals, that all those things would be relevant for what you're talking about but then there's the large overview picture that is a different 10,000-foot perspective. So yes, there's both.
Right.
Okay.
So I think the greening and I would call like
The general plan.
the general plan. Yeah. So looking at longer in the
Circulation
future aspects, our ATP plan is really narrowing down into what type of bicycle lane do we want to put in on our streets.
So who does that go to?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that there's a near-term opportunity for volunteers to compile the work you've already invested in with other advocate energy. And that conversation I was describing with Dana Ture was also in that conversation was Eris Weaver from the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition. And and Eris has volunteered to help us with this as well. So what I'm thinking is we have an opportunity between now and this May community meeting to try and get a few of these these visions, together so that they can make that community meeting most productive and stick with our schedule. But it doesn't sound like we have the need for budget at this point. It's not like we have to go pay a consultant to go out and do anything. And that's what I was trying to get out of this meeting tonight, was to clarify that. And I feel like we've done so. We have a date. So did we form an ad hoc for transportation?
I think ad hoc is the next topic as we move forward.
Because that would where we discuss.
I have
how
public comment on this one before we move to that next topic.
Yeah, so before we move on, I recommend if you have interest in the active transportation plan, go to the Planning Commission meeting on March 21st. And there you can watch the video and the presentation, as well as there is a link to the presentation on that agenda packet. So you can March. It would so they presented to Planning Commission on March 21st with a draft.
Oh,
really
March,
early
so
draft.
it's on a recording for view.
Yeah, so you can watch it. And then at the end of May, so they're right now doing their round around the communities in the county, coming and doing the presentations, gathering feedback on what they're presenting. They're going to do that in our community at the end of May. So I'll get you those exact dates. But for right now, I think pulling that information from the March 21st meeting, seeing what they're saying, listening to how they prioritize projects and how they identify them, will kind of give you some more information. And then that way you can take that information and provide that input at the May meetings on that. Any other questions about funding before we open to public comment, and then we can have discussion after that?
That's what I was going to say. Any other commissioner comments or questions on this issue?
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with the budget. I don't think this is a budgeted issue, but last year, the Department of Energy, under the Improvements Act, approved a $1 billion plan in California for electric vehicle charging. Most of the plan is 101 in Sonoma, because it really does focus on their state corridors and state roads. I don't want us to miss any opportunities, because I'm a little concerned that if we have an administration change, that money won't be available next year.
Excellent point, and worthy of intense look at over the next month or so on the EV charger opportunities. There's things happening behind the scenes that I'm hoping to be able to announce at the next commission meeting a little more in the public arena about what's going on as opportunities in the EV charger world. Is there public comment on this? Yes, sir, please join us at the podium. Pleased to have you.
Thank you so much. Hi, we spoke the other day. My name is Pete Posert. I stood before the city council about 15 years ago here in Sonoma and told them that if every single home sale in the city of Sonoma had a required solar component, where to buy a home in this town, you had to get solar, the homeowners would save a fortune. It was back in NEM1. Mayor Cohen looked at it and said, "Oh my God, we have a commission for you." And he stuck me on the old CSEC. Was the city the guy they elected to go talk at Sonoma County when it was founded, first there, that became Skype, actually a long time ago. I sat on the board for many years, but moved away. I've since sold solar energy forever and then became a BayREN rater. If you looked it up, you'd see my name as a rater, one of only half a dozen in the Bay Area that's independent and as a sole proprietor. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about these issues, including the Sonoma Bicycle Coalition's plan for the city back when I was on the commission. So I was shocked when my partner's permit came in for $750 for an electric vehicle charging station at her multifamily unit. That is so far the wrong direction that I figured I'd come down and say my piece. Happy to walk the streets if you want me to help you out. I love the town, and I'm sure going forward you guys are going to do the right thing that we were talking about 10 or 15 years ago. You look like you're well on your way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments and for making us aware of the scale of permit funding that's being required. Yes, of course. This is the public comment time. We have hundreds of the public here, so please come forward.
I see that. I'm curious, and maybe this was in the March 21st meeting, but why wait till 2026 to have incentives towards multi-unit EV charging stations? I know there's quite a few people in my condo complex that feel they're unable to buy an EV car because there's no incentive for us to put in a charger that everyone can use. I had to put in my own because of that block with the HOA. I had to dig an extra long conduit to get it to my parking space. But I know there's a lot of disappointed people that now will have to wait till 2026 and beyond for any hope of buying an EV car or having a charger in their multi-unit complex. So I'm not sure why that's been put off. I'm glad for more trees, but I think EV cars are also a big part of the piece of the puzzle, and we're not doing anything really to address that. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for your public comment. Any other public comment? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, I believe we can close this item, and that moves us to glasses on. The next item is 3.3, ad hoc committees for climate action strategies and tree.
Before we move on to 3.3, can we just get a consensus from the group about the moving forward with the specific budget and that there's no modification? So
excellent point. It should have been before, but
well,
so is there a motion from the commission with respect to the proposal presented by the city director with respect to approaching budget requests to the city manager and the city council?
I move that we accept the budget as proposed.
Thank you, Cedra. Is there a second to this motion?
I second.
Amber seconds. Excellent. We have a motion and second. Discussion of the motion by the commissioners.
Yes.
Tom.
So I understood Jennifer to say that the 75,000 is premature for this budget cycle and that it shouldn't be on this budget cycle's request. Is that what you were suggesting? It would be a 2025, later 2025 expense, not a 24-25 expense?
that is correct.
That's correct. The budget on the table before us is 150K, not 2.25, the way I understood the discussion.
Thank you.
And the motion, therefore, is for the 150K budget proposal.
And then during our discussion, I had suggested clarifying the budget request to identify transportation somewhere on here so as to avoid that obvious leaving it off the list completely.
Yes, that's fair.
And as we progressed in our discussion, we came to the conclusion that some of the tree program budget is in fact corridors, which is identified as under our transportation. So with that clarification in the framing of it, that would be helpful for me. And then we really haven't talked at all about the proportion of water conservation versus energy conservation. And I wonder if as I understand these categories, this is mostly hard costs of the city, not staff time.
Correct.
And so I like the idea of the energy conservation allocating $15,000 to really support us drawing BayREN and CARD into the Sonoma Valley. That strikes me as a really smart strategy and a good use of $15,000 when they have millions of dollars behind them to throw at us, if we can use it and promote it. And I also, for that reason, I like the outreach budget. The outreach budget strikes me as a little low unless it's only for developing our logo and doing local printing. But don't we also have water bills that go out to all of our city residents? Does there a cost to us to add and so is that included in that 5,000 as a potential, or would we need to add to that budget to be able to do a water bill mailing to do promotions to our city residents?
So, water billing. I love that. Water conservation programs would probably send out through the water bills. So, how many of you actually receive your water bill in paper form? Okay, so that tells you right there.
However, the city does have a list.
It does.
And has the ability to send a targeted mailing
We send,
as well.
Yeah, we can send targeted mailing for different things. I sent a targeted mail for the general plan. How many of you received that? Yeah. Okay. Who lives here in the city? Yeah. Okay. I did send a postcard out for the general plan, and it went into your mailboxes. But okay, it was a big postcard too. So it's hit and miss when it comes to mailings in our community, right? You're going to get something in the mail and it's going to be with your bill. You're probably going to open it. But if it's just something, I don't know about you, but I rifle through stuff real fast and I throw it in the recycle. So I feel like that's a hit and miss thing. I feel like social media and other types of outreach ways through that, newspaper, those types of things. Newspaper, ads are not going to be, they're going to be in a couple hundreds, depending on which newspaper we use, things like that. So I kind of lean towards traditional media as well as social media. And then we obviously have our own webpage and things like that we need to update. So my 5,000 was more about if we could partner with the marketing people to help us, give a little funds for here and there. The 15,000, I was including some of the hard costs as far as putting together a workshop and any materials and things that would go with that. Not the outreach was just kind of miscellaneous outreach, because a lot of the topics that we've talked about, we're doing a lot of different education, but it may be not directly correlated to a composting rebate program or a water rebate program. It's some of the other topics that we had in our outreach strategies.
Very well, I appreciate all of this. And so to the discussion on the tree program and the CAL FIRE potential grant, that $100,000 would be, some of that would probably not have to be spent if we got the grant. So is there a sort of a minimum amount that we would be asking the council to sequester for those first two things? Do we know what that is? Because just to get my head wrapped around it, I don't know how big the CAL FIRE grant would be. Is it 100? Is it going to pay for the whole thing?
It's a 3-year grant, and it would probably be $250,000 for 3 years. So the 100,000 was identified to do the first 3 items in that year. It wouldn't include a lot of the extra aspects that we were doing in the CAL FIRE grant. This would be kind of that minimum of we're going to send an RFP out and hire a company to do these 3 items. A lot of the aspects of the CAL FIRE grant are more about community education and some workforce development and planting of trees. Those are in the CAL FIRE grant.
And the 25,000 in water conservation would be additive to the existing cash for turf and other things, or would it be kind of rolling those existing expenses into this ask?
So I did not see cash for turf budget this year in this fiscal year. So there is no budget. So we're starting again. And my idea behind the 25,000 is an initial kind of like startup. Let's see the interest level for our community with these different types. And then we can go from there in the next year. Hey, we actually ran out of funds. You know, we would like to increase that grant request because we're actually getting a lot. Or, you know what, this rebate program really wasn't successful, but these were, we still didn't, you know, max out at 25, but we're going to cut a program maybe or something like that.
All right. I appreciate your indulgence in asking all those questions
Thank
while
you,
we have
Tom.
a standing motion on the floor.
Excellent set of qualifying questions.
Do you have a friendly?
Do we have time, any more comments or questions before we take the vote?
So
There's a
the
motion
question
on
is,
the floor, as I recall,
does any
from
of
some
that
minutes ago.
discussion result in an amendment, a request for an amendment, a friendly amendment to the, I think it was, Cedra, you made the motion.
Yes, actually, I was going to amend.
If you may, please go ahead.
I was going to amend so that the tree program identified that includes active transportation clarification as a component of what that funding is for with the budget motion.
Thank you. That's very amenable to me.
So we have a motion and a second, as I recall from some minutes ago.
Do you need me to second again on the amended?
I wouldn't mind.
Yes.
Thank you, Amber. Any further discussion from commissioners on this motion? If not, I believe we're ready for a roll call vote, Natalie.
Commissioner Fogelberg? Aye. Commissioner Heinerman?
Aye.
Commissioner Nathan?
Aye.
Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
Vice Chair Conlon?
Aye.
And Chair Morrell?
Yes.
The motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. That concludes that particular item. We've had public comment and the motion has been approved. We're moving now to 3.3 on tonight's agenda. That's the ad hoc committees for climate action strategies and tree priorities. So let's start with Jennifer with a preamble on what we're going to cover here and then go from there.
I have been working with our city clerk, and we have come up with these simple guidelines for ad hoc subcommittees. We're currently, or she is currently putting together new binders for all commissioners that just helps with all the different rules and things like that. So this is specifically to ad hoc subcommittees, and I just want to go over those, and then we can either tonight go over what ad hoc committees were formed previously and kind of how we want to reshape them as a group, or we can continue that discussion to the meeting next month. But for right now, just as reminders for the guidelines for ad hoc. So membership must consist of less than a quorum of the commission. Our commission now consists of 7 members, so 3.
3.
Membership cannot include anyone other than members of the commission. They can invite members of the public to provide information or task them to complete a project. However, repeated participation in a committee would be considered an action as a committee member and is not permissible under the Brown Act. So members may contact each other to discuss the subject matter of that ad hoc committee, and then you can use outside resources for research. But they should be disclosed. Everything should be disclosed. But members must not discuss ad hoc committee topics with other members of the commission, even members of another ad hoc committee, as this would constitute that meeting and being in a violation of the Brown Act. So as we were talking about earlier, Norma and Cedra are on a committee together. They talked to Philip. Philip's on a committee with David and Tom. They've talked about that same item. We've now gone way over. So that's just kind of the easy way to think about it. And just recognizing, hey, you know, we're going to talk to this person and that person's going to talk to that person. We're probably going to breach it. So maybe Jennifer know, and Jennifer can put it on the agenda and we can talk about it together. And then, again, that goes to the next one. Members can report their findings or provide advice to the commission via an item placed on the open meeting agenda. So my recommendation for this is when ad hoc committees, you know, have something they want to discuss with the group, or ready to move forward with conversations and get further direction, that's when you let me know, we discuss what those are so that I can put them on the agenda and ask you basically for a report or something to attach to share with the group for that meeting. And then members must not advise the council directly or speak on behalf of the board as a whole or a commission without prior approval of that majority. So that's hence the reason on that budget. I was like, okay, let's make sure that we're all in consensus so it's a representation of the commission's idea. So with that is the guidelines for the ad hoc.
A couple of questions in my mind that come off of this. This is quite consistent basically with what we had before with the two commissioners back in the smaller commission. First of all, I understood that the youth commissioner was allowed to be on some of these ad hocs at no additional on top of the three regular commissioners. Is that correct?
That is correct, as they are not a voting member.
That confirms what I thought about the youth commissioner. I'd like a little more guidance from you or on the outside resources, bullet 4. Should be disclosed to the commission the use of outside resources. Is that, at what point does that disclosure have to occur before the ad hoc has the first conversation with the outside resource, after the first conversation, and at the next CAC meeting? What's the sequencing intended here?
So as far as outside resources for research, you know, it's just a matter of disclosing in the sense of if it's not your research that you did, it's just, you know, you got this from some other location or person or anything, or they shared it with you, you would share it with your group, your ad hoc group, in your discussion. And if that moves forward to the commission, then you would discuss it then. Just like if you wrote a paper, you're going to source where you got that information from. Same idea.
Okay, just to clarify then, if a group looking at solar energy was to coordinate and consult with Michael Heffler, who's been very active in that field, as an example, as an outside resource guiding that ad hoc, at what point is it mandatory for that ad hoc to announce to the full commission that Mr. Heffler's been providing useful advice?
Whenever you're using that useful advice to actually inform your decision making or advocating or discussing with your group that this is something that's important. How do you know about it? You know about it because you had this conversation with this person that may be paid as an advocate for this or something like that. So there's, it'll come up in different ways, and you're always welcome to ask if there's certain things. The idea is just, like I was talking about before, is just to letting everybody know where your information is coming from, that you're then providing out to the community and or your commission members. It's something that it's just transparency. It's part of this one, not specifically in this written this way, but on public hearings and decision making that's happening, we created a policy on ex parte disclosures, just making sure that we're just staying transparent about our decision making.
I want to say thank you for having this in writing, because I was a little confused after the last meeting, so this is very helpful.
I need it today. So yeah, I'll share this. So I literally just got it today. So I'll share it with everybody. With that, do we want to create ad hoc committees tonight, or are we needing a refresher and come back in May?
I'll defer to the commission. My sense would be that it's time to get the ad hocs back to work and move it forward. If I have support from other commissioners, that would be my recommendation.
So.
Seeing a few heads nod.
Yeah, I think we're nodding
coming.
heads,
Yeah,
and.
fine.
And
So
then the
let's
question would be,
discuss about
what
the
should those ad
ad hocs
hocs be?
Yeah.
So in the climate action strategies at the very bottom, I put some committee recommendations. So we previously identified the following ad hocs when we discussed the climate action strategies. Grants and funding opportunities. So far, Morale was the only one on that one. The other one was education and outreach, and we had Ward, Morell, and Clemens. And then building, we had HINERMAN and CONLON, and I know they've already met. And then the other two recommended are transportation and trees. And trees, I would recommend be kind of like a combo. So the carbon sequestration, cool corridor, and then the tree priority, that was identified previously. So backing up 1 second, there will be a trees committee created by pros, an ad hoc committee created by pros. Pros and climate action can talk to each other. You're not on the same commission making decisions, you're separate bodies. But I'm just gonna make sure we get a little bit formalized around that. But for right now, I have
So we have
those.
5 ad hocs potentially before us at the moment as a proposal. Do we want to go through them one after the next and see up to 3 commissioners who would like to be on that particular ad hoc going forward? Let's start, and maybe you had the first one, the grants and funding.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have any commissioners who are eager to pursue grants and funding?
We have a grants project now, so is that, I'm assuming that that's the one that would be the grants and funding ad hoc, is that correct?
So we don't have a group yet
Oh.
of,
So
we have David is the only
Right, and that meeting
identified
didn't happen
commissioner.
often, but I do work frequently on grants and would be happy to continue some expertise in the grants
So
area. But to have a real ad hoc, we certainly need at least one other commissioner to play in the grants and funding arena. Dr. Nathan, would you like to join this?
I guess I should be the other person on there.
Are there any other commissioners who are eager to write proposals and raise money and have a lot of fun in the fiscal game? Norma?
No, yeah, I'm not raising my hand.
Or I saw a hand up.
Not raising my hand for that. But I wanted to actually wrap this into other question I had. But Philip, you had the comment earlier about following up on funding that may go away. And I'm wondering if that would be appropriate. And do you have to be on the funding ad hoc to participate?
Yeah, you could look at something and then.
Because the other part of my question is how are we going to follow up on that item? Because that's a hot topic. I don't want that to drop. And does that fall into staff or does that fall to us?
So, a couple of different ways you can approach this. So, my hope is that in working with the grants group or two, that we create a list, and that's the list that we monitor, right? And so every year we're going to look, what's the availability, what are the due dates, things like that we can update as we go through. Are we ready to apply for it this year? Did we apply last year? What was the feedback? Are we applying this year? Those are the things that need to happen with grant programs, and when we start looking at grants, because we do need to do grants to actually do these projects, right? So to get that running grant list is going to help with that. That being said, some of those grants, right, are one-time funding opportunities, things like that, and so they need to be followed. So that's part one, is the grants group is going to look through what's available. The other half of that is those that know, and they get the emails, right? Some of you get emails from different groups that say, oh, here's the funding cycle, the NOFA has been released for this grant. I don't get all those, so I'm going to rely on all of you all to share information with me and or a person on what's coming up, that, hey, we've got this coming, did you see this, that kind of thing. If there's ones that people know about that are not continuing on potentially, or may be missing, this is where your knowledge base is going to help us know where to go look, because I don't even know what department is offering that specific grant, right? And so you guys are going to have to rely on each other / me.
Cedra and I will have our pulse on a lot of this, and we look forward to hearing from others through Jennifer, other commissioners, so that we don't violate a Brown Act situation. But if you hear about other things from DOE, some of the BIL and IRA money is flowing out rather rapidly now. These are both federal programs. There's a fair amount of EPA interested money that's flowing into, for example, La Luz in the Springs with $1 million grant on EJ stuff, environmental justice issues. So there's a lot going on in the grants arena, and by others letting the ad hoc grants team know through Jennifer what you hear, we can stay clean with Ralph M. Brown and still get all the information we need. Tom?
If there's no other interest on the commission at this time, and to preserve the opportunity, as Jennifer just put it, to expand that pool of potential grants, I'm getting all kinds of building-related grant opportunities pushed at me, and I would be willing to serve with, sort of on an ad hoc basis. On the ad hoc,
so that's highly appropriate, Tom.
just so that, and to help with Philip's concern, as Norma mentioned, that we want to be sure that the EV opportunities aren't overlooked. So, because you guys are focused on an existing project in particular, but maybe having a broader net would be helpful. So,
thank you.
I'll serve as well. Thank you.
So the grants and funding ad hoc is David and Cedra and Tom. You can.
No,
You're
put me
in.
on the list.
No, we can't have 4, so what am I?
Can we talk about transportation next? Because I'm leaving in about 10 minutes. One of my favorite things to do is catch red eyes, and I'm going to the airport
Oh,
tonight.
God help you. I just got off one a couple days ago.
And I need to
Still
leave in
tired.
a few minutes.
Yes, sir.
I would like to be on the transportation committee. Do you mind if we talk about that?
I would be pleased, short of any objection from another commissioner, to focus next on the transportation ad hoc. Going once, twice, we're on to it. Transportation ad hoc previously had Tom Conlon as.
No, we didn't form one.
We didn't form one.
We didn't form one
Okay.
last time.
So I guess as chair, I would look for volunteers. Let's do it by hands for the transportation ad hoc.
Yeah, I figured that was the one.
I've seen 2 hands, maybe 3 now with that's a hand. There we go.
And
So we
if
have
we're done
now.
with that one. Can
Yeah.
we do the buildings? one?
We
Because Tom
can.
and I have already started on
We
that.
can.
I don't-
Let's
once
get transportation done next, sir.
Once the job is once begun, never leave it till it's done, right? So,
So
gonna stay on
transportation,
that
we
one.
have Conlon and Nathan and HINERMAN.
And building, we have HINERMAN, Conlon. Anybody else want to join building, or?
Can I just clarify, transportation is trees and transportation, is that right? Or is that, what were we doing there?
So it's a combo.
It was
I
trees and carbon is what I wrote in my notes.
trees is separate, so
Carbon sequestration and trees is a different
it's
one.
a different one. So transportation is more about the EV charging,
Mm-hmm.
or no gas, no drive-through windows, no.
Okay.
I think you want trees.
Okay.
I'm removing myself from transportation, but I will
Oh,
give you guys information
Okay.
that's relevant as you need.
Transportation is now Conlon and Philip. Are there any other
Yeah, I'll-
volunteers?
I'll
Norma
volunteer for
and Norma.
transportation.
Tom brings really nice wine with all the meetings.
Uh-huh.
That's a new policy. I just started it, so.
Okay.
Some public comments are more important than others. And to get you to your red eye, what's next? Now, we've got trees and carbon sequestration is the remaining one.
So on building, was there
And then we have the
nobody?
public outreach thing.
We're going back up. So
Yeah.
building
We
though,
will.
Heinerman's leaving, Heinerman, Conlon, and so I didn't see any other hands. You don't have to be
You
on
don't
more
have to
than
be
two
three.
or one, or you can whatever you do you. So
Okay.
I will. We can, and you can join at another time. We don't have to decide today. Do you really want to be on it?
Which
Well,
one are we on now? I got lost.
Buildings, because we were
Buildings.
discussing from the previous ad hocs and the government ops, which included a lot of buildings. Would that be part of the buildings?
Can be,
Yes,
yes.
and yes, ish.
Government buildings.
So a
and
lot of
private
that is going to
buildings.
be me dealing with public works on what we can do and what's feasible and in our cycle. So if there's certain funding things, but when it comes to the public, like the water filling stations, we're looking at probably doing this year, the bike racks, things like that on public facilities, that's a little different. But I know what you're talking about, and I don't know where that sits right now. That's a whole conversation I need to have with Public Works. That's why I'm having that other conversation with Christine as well, is to see where we were in 2021 with their basically an audit.
Right, because we didn't really talk about government ops and the whole list of things that we'd recommended there tonight.
Yeah.
But we do know that you're working on that with the rest of city staff. So if we just work, I guess, directly with you on that, that's the proper way. We don't need a formal ad hoc to do that or to add the scope of the buildings committee. Got it.
So we still have two in my notes to staff up to three, trees and carbon sequestration and public outreach.
Correct. So education and outreach, I had Ward, Morrell, Clemens, and
That's-
I'm assuming Fogelberg.
Fogelberg is, all right.
I'm
So we have
assuming.
Norma and Amber. And I guess I have to be there.
You don't have to be.
No,
You just had
I-
volunteered.
No, I have to be from a different sense, that it's critical to everything else here that we energize the public. So that's an important ad hoc from my point of view.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And then
Trees and carbon sequestration.
Nathan.
Okay, yes.
Cedra?
Tom?
And given the amount of carbon issues and the amount of tree issues that are underway, even in the Green Schoolyards game, I need to be on that as well. Not every commissioner will attend every meeting, that's for sure. All right, I think we're there. Do we need a vote to approve all of these?
No,
Or
you do not.
we do not. Good. Okay. And we could call for public comment, but that's pretty sparse at the moment. So I think unless there's any further,
I have one comment before we close this item, if I may.
yes, sir, before we close item 3.3.
Since I will
Vice
not
Chair has
be
another comment.
participating on the Education and Outreach Committee, I just wanted to reiterate my encouragement to consider using the Cool Carbon Calculator benchmarking tool. This has come up in our buildings ad hoc, but now that I'm in public forum, we're in a public forum, I can discuss that with you
Yes.
all. And just to point out that the originally developed by Lawrence Berkeley Labs and hosted at the Air Resources Board is a wonderful outreach tool for helping people understand how much carbon their current lifestyle is using, both as a homeowner or as a building or a business. And so I'd encourage the outreach folks to think about how that tool might fit into your
Would I ask you to please send to one of the outreach committee
that link?
That link so that the outreach committee is sure to have the right link on the cool carbon calculator?
Yeah,
So,
I'd be happy to do
thank
that.
you.
And I did send it to Jennifer earlier based on our conversations with Philip, and shared it with the, I think it was Jennifer shared it with the team that presented to us tonight, the BayREN team that presented to us tonight. So just want to be sure that came up tonight in public forum so that I don't have to participate in that committee to make that recommendation again. Thank you.
I will, as chair, reach out to Kendall to see where she would like to be in this process. Is there anything else on 3.3 before we close this item, going once, twice at this hour? Seeing, hearing none, we're moving on to item 4, director comments and announcements. That would be Jennifer.
That's me. So we talked briefly about the meetings that are coming up in May, but we are also having a meeting in May, so we'll get you more of those dates. I also had talked to or emailed with Philip and Tom, and as I stated earlier, when the ad hocs are ready to present information, then I'll ask for kind of like something to attach to the staff, you know, either a staff report, it doesn't have to be super formal, just your highlights of your ideas, and such as, you know, sharing that information. And, you know, we had talked about, you know, all of you all looking at your own carbon footprint. So just those types of things that we'll look at in the future. And the budget will go, I have everything that's due to the city manager by next Friday. So this is very timely for me. And then it'll go through finance committee and then go to city council end of May. And then the last meeting of June is when they'll actually do the budget adoption. So it's coming really fast. So cross your fingers. And then the CAL FIRE grant as well is due May 30th. So we're hoping the May, I think we said May 15th meeting, we would be going to city council for their approval to apply for the grant. So, all right. And that's my...
Are there any commissioner questions of Ms. Gates in terms of the director's report? Seeing none, we can close that item and move to item 5, commissioner reports and comments. Item is not on the agenda. Amber.
Yeah, I actually went on a field trip about a month ago to a glass recycling facility in Modesto, Halo. And so this is something maybe we can consider in the future, because Halo partners with all sorts of municipalities to take their recycling and sort it and take all the glass to use for our very large wine industry in the area. So it was a very cool, interesting thing to see, and a very large glass production company in California, name starts with a G, Gallo, as we all lovingly know them, that rules the world. They partner with Halo, and so they are working to, right now they're at 50% recycled glass. They're working to increase that with this partnership. So it's just something maybe in the future, I don't know. It was a really cool thing, and it would be fun to be a part of that.
Thank you, Amber. Other commissioner comments at this point? Seeing none, I have one comment. We have focused over many meetings on emissions reduction strategies. And I did want to introduce this evening the fact that my reading is that climate challenges are growing worse, not better, nationally, internationally, locally, and so on, despite the work we're doing. And that I want us to begin to start putting on our burner, back burner towards mid burner, towards front burner, climate adaptation strategies for the city of Sonoma. These are issues dealing with beyond mitigation efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This is how we will deal with excessive heat in our buildings, on our sidewalks, in our schools, how we'll deal with flooding, how we'll deal with, God help us, fires. Not that any of us know a damn thing about that, of course, having been evacuated myself twice. The adaptation issues are complicated. They're heavily embedded in public activities of both county and city, and I would like us not to forget that as we go forward as a commission, to begin to put that on our complex agenda. With that, if there, Tom?
I'll just make a final note myself. I also serve on the Sonoma County Transportation Authority Citizens Advisory Committee alongside of Tim Zahner, who's the Sonoma Valley Tourism Chair. And we were discussing active transportation at that meeting, and then he and I set up a separate lunch to just talk about Sonoma Valley a little bit. And I just want to recognize that he's a very thoughtful person and is interested in how we can make the valley a more sustainable place. However, when I talked about mitigation adaptation and how our businesses in the community prepared for what is coming at us, he said, while he's aware of it, he said most businesses in the community are worried about booking their hotel rooms by midnight. They are not able to plan out of that horizon largely. And I think it's important for those of us who have our heads in the clouds thinking about the future to recognize the constraints that a lot of our community is working under. It's hard to take the time to think about these things. So we're obviously going to have to help them do that in a way that's effective. And so I'm very pleased to have that opportunity to talk with Tim and him as a colleague in this matter with us. So I just wanted to say that publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Norma?
Do we have a parking lot, as I call it, of ideas where we place these conversations so we can go back and start to prioritize them once we get beyond a point of dealing with some of the things that are currently on our plate? Because I hear a lot of good ideas that come up, and I almost think that once a year, having some sort of planning or visioning session to go back and look at ideas that we didn't have the bandwidth to deal with, but that are important, would be really helpful. So the question is, how do we place these ideas so that they're still live and they're not static and disappear?
Can you be a little bit more specific? Do you mean ideas like that there's not bandwidth in businesses to deal with?
Yeah, so for example, Philip's comment about the potential of having money available now, which might not be available after elections. Dropping that ball could be costly. This idea that our businesses are not focused on some of the climate issues that David just brought up. How can we look at that? You know, how can we support that in terms of education and outreach? It's currently not on any agenda, and outreach could pick that up, but we have to have a way of tracking these things. And having a live list that we can access and seeing how we can connect some of our work to address that would be really helpful, because a lot is covered in this 2 to 3 hours and a lot can be lost.
Excellent, excellent point. Any suggestions on this parking lot and how and where and when and who, often comes back to who, to develop this longer-term list of critical issues?
So there's always going to be critical issues. There's a couple of different things. One is I treat our climate action strategies as our work plan. This is what we're working towards.
Exactly.
And it's going to take time and effort, and the more things that we pile on, the more ways we can get sidetracked. That being said, there are certain things like the businesses. We have elements in here, right, about educating, and so you, as on the education committee, or anybody else on the education committee, takes that and says, oh yeah, we talked about that. How do we incorporate that into what we're doing and discussing today in our ad hoc committee? So there's ways to do that as well. If it's big, broad topics like the climate adaptation, I'm registering it in my brain, but I also know that climate adaptation and sustainability is a topic in our general plan, and I know that I will be bringing that to you later this year. So and then, I work with the chair on the agenda and things like that. If I forget something, usually I'll be reminded by a chair, because I've got 3 commissions, so you're not my only one. So there's small things that are going to be, I'm going to rely on you to implement and to work through. If there's something that's bigger topic that you want to agendize, this item right here on your agenda, Commissioners' Reports and Comments, this is when you say, we would like to agendize this for a future meeting. And I say, okay.
Got it. Okay. So that covers both.
Huh?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else from anyone before we, we're only at 8:30, not 9. It's done. 1, 2, and done.